Welcome to the Most Autodrome for the first race of the first ever GT4 Central European Cup. Been a beautiful day. Clouds starting to form in the sky, but still a very warm day for this point in spring. Air temperature around 21, 22 degrees. Might be slightly cooling. These flags above the pits not fluttering quite as much, but with the sun behind the cloud, that will be to the favour, to the benefit of the drivers. This hour-long race will certainly test their tyres. Driver change midway through for all but 4 of the 13 cars due to start this race. Those 4 cars will be with drivers running solo. They won't gain an advantage to doing so. They will just have to stand the same amount of time at a standstill in the pit lane. And it was a real story in this morning in both the qualifying sessions for this race and for tomorrow's race of Maserati's coming good. Maserati's 1 and 2. It looked as though Giuseppe Fascicolo had done enough to take pole position, but right near the end, Polish racer Maciej Marcinowicz just put his at the front. Not by a lot, by 0.037 of a second. It was that close. In fact, it was very close. The top 4 cars covered by less than 0.2 of a second. Third place on the grid, Hamza Avega, who will be driving solo in his Racing 1 Audi, and Jörg Wiebarn, so many years experience in Porsche Caymans. He was 4th fastest, 0.187 second down from pole position. Pole for this, unlike some of the other races, will be on the pit wall side. The eSky WP Racing Team Maserati closer to the pit wall. That's number 777, Scuderia Viorba course version of the Maserati Gran Turismo MC, will be starting closer to the grandstand side. Most Autodrome has been racing in the area since the late 40s, but that was around the grounds of a brewery. What's not to like? Before they started using layouts on local roads for things as leery and powerful as Interserie cars. But the plans were hatched in the mid-70s to see if they could build a circuit of their own, and it is now sited on the site of a former open cast mine, and certainly looks far more attractive than it would in those days. It's on a hillside looking over a valley and the hills beyond, and it's a really wonderful circuit. 4.222 kilometres, 21 turns crammed into that, so it's twisty in parts, but some open sectors, particularly on the return leg from the turn 10 hairpin, which is the furthest point from the pits. And many a driver's been getting slightly wrong, going out over the curbs, and the curbs are fairly flat, so it's easy to carry on going onto the grass and the gravel beyond. But on this formation lap, everyone hopefully behaving. So here is our starting grid. Marcin Marcinowicz starting on pole in his Maserati Giuseppe Fascicolo. Then Hamza Awega driving solo in the Racing 1 Audi. Jörg Wiebarn sharing with Rob Severs, Allied Racing Porsche. Ivan Vlaškov, another solo racer in the Sin from Sofia Car Motorsport. Sergej Pavlovic, the top Czech driver in the best place of the KTM Crossbows. He'll be starting in 6th place. Cars on row 5 also KTM Crossbows. Freddie Fast, Lechner Racing Mercedes. And David Clark, late entry, he's one of 3 Czech drivers in the race. He'll be sharing with Maciej Drescher. And bringing up the rear, Franjo Kovac. In the Beza Group Mercedes, he's crossed over to racing Mercedes this year after a Porsche Cayman with Cora Schumacher last year. Now he's got a Czech driver on board for this opening round of the Central European Cup, and that driver is Thomas Picard. Now, the race is an hour long. 25 minutes into the race, the pit lane window is thrown open for 10 minutes. As long as you're into the pit lane before we've got to 35 minutes in the race, that's fine. Pit stops have to be minimum time at a standstill. And for some of the crews, 4 of the crews, there will be no driver change. They'll simply have to sit there until the clock tells them, or their pit crew tells them they can go racing. Audi safety car leading the field around and really wanting everyone to get into position. Those are the sweepers from turn 17 on the right of the screen, 18 on the left, a little kink behind the paddock. We want them to be getting into 2x2 formation. There's the Beza Group, silver, blue and green Mercedes bringing up the rear behind the grey, yellow and black Mercedes of Lechner Racing. But up front, it's the 2 Maseratis on the left-hand side of your screen, you will see Maciej Marcinovic, Polish racer for the WP Racing Team on the outside with the blue stripes up and over the bonnet and beyond. With Giuseppe Fascicolo sharing with Romy Dall'Antonio. So it's Maserati's 1 and 2. They fill the front row. Then comes the Racing 1 Audi. Hamza Ovega, and on the outside, double GT4 European champion Jörg Wiebahn. He'll be handing over to Dutch racer Rob Severs. Right now the cars will come round the corner, the final corner, the 21st corner. They'll look at the starting gantry. The lights are red. When they are green, the field are having to brake. It's been a long hold. They don't know what it's going to be. Who's got the power down best? Is it going to be a Maserati or a Maserati leading down into the first corner? Or will they be toppled? So down the field comes. Is there a challenge from behind from the Audi? Well, it's having a go, but in fact, Wiebahn goes down the outside. Will he get his braking done, or will he be up the escape road? The answer is, what a start from Jörg Wiebahn. Passing 3 rivals. One of the KTMs has also gained places, and the driver who's lost out is Hamza Ovega, who's down to 5th place, nearly back to 6th in the red and grey Audi. Now he's got the Sin for company, but he's also being pushed very hard by that KTM Crossmo. But what a start from Jörg Wiebahn. Looked as though he might have left it all too late, but just got enough braking done to turn into turn 1 in the front of the race. So the Maseratis knocked back down the order there. And it's Fascicolo who started second, who's running second, and the pole starter, Marcinovic, who lost out and fell down the order. And in behind, the order looks to have stayed fairly much the same, with the exception of a place gained by the best of the KTMs, which ought to be Sergej Pavlovich, local racer, and at the back of the field should be the silver, blue and green Mercedes, just waiting for it. Coming into shot of Beta Group with Franjo Kovac at the wheel. So Wiebahn, what a start. Would like to have a look at that from another angle, because when it had the shot taken from the side of the grid, you thought, good grief, he's so fast. And he's super fast there, and he's vaulted over the curve, but somehow out of turn 15, 16, 17. It was out of 17, he got it wrong. He held it together. It was a rocky ride across the grass, but he somehow kept the car stable enough to return to the circuit, still in front of those chasing Maseratis. Place being gained by Freddie Fast, great name for a racing driver from Austria for Lechner Racing. So he's put one over, or more to the point, kept David Clark behind him. Gap between first and second at the end of the opening lap, just under half a second, but it's still Jörg Wiebahn. What a fantastic start he had. Can't wait to see a replay. But the first 3 starting to pull clear of Hamza Ovega, who's in 4th place in the Audi. And indeed, it is Pavlovich, Sergej Pavlovich, Czech racer, in 5th place. Great start for him. In fact, he very nearly got up 1 more position through turns 1 and 2. Everybody else behind behaving very well indeed. So look at this moment out of turn 17, trying to get the power down, but just understeering wide over the curbs, over the grass, bouncing through the dirt. And just by the time at the kink at turn 18, Jörg Wiebahn showing more of the side of the car than he would ordinarily have liked, as he gets the car very twitchy, but he held on. He won't turn his hair grey, he's always got immaculate silver grey hair, but it certainly was quite a moment, and it shows just how determined he is to get the inaugural round. First race of the inaugural round, I should say, because we have another tomorrow here at the Most Autodrome of the Central European Cup, off to a winning start for Allied Racing. 2 cars entered in this race, the sister car running a little further down the pack, numbers 41 and 43. Freddie Kramer in the sister car is lost the position, he's fallen down to 9th place, but having kept the car at that very point of the circuit, on the circuit this time around, it looks as though an advantage is being gained. There's the point he went off. Last time around, Jörg Wiebahn, he was 0.49 of a second clear last time around. The driver who started to make the moves is the driver of that Audi in 4th place, Hamza Ovega. He's just set fastest first sector and second sector of anyone. So he's closing the gap to the Maseratis. I just thought the top 3 had started to make good their escape. And we saw this actually in the qualifying rounds, that Hamza Ovega is quite cautious, building himself up to speed, but he's very short on racing experience. So every time he's out in the circuit, he's gaining experience and doing a very good job in 4th place in that Racing 1 Audi. He was one of 44 cars. He's raced one of the 44 cars entered for the opening round of the GT4 European Series at Zolder a few weeks ago. And certainly along with Racing 1, gaining valuable experience. Sergej Pavlovich in that KTM, one with the orange flashes, being pushed very hard by the Bulgarian racer in the Sin, which is Ivan Blashkov. And in turn, tucked under the rear wing, we have the number 18 Pro Sport Performance Porsche with Luca Volgarden. He's sharing that with Moritz Österreich. Just to let you know how good that last lap was, the second flying lap of the race, for our race leader, Jörg Wiebahn, he gained 0.7 of a second over the Maseratis. Now the Maseratis have got company because Hamza Vega has closed right in. So Giuseppe Fasciolo is still holding down second place. Maciej Marcinovic third, but Hamza Vega starting to trouble them. That Sin R1, previous seasons, has been raced predominantly in a white livery. Looks much better with the red and green, as well as being patriotically, making even more patriotically Bulgarian than before. So even Vlachkov just went out of your shot there. That car number 25, hadn't seen too much of that in the race. That's German racer Benjamin Mazatis. Doing his business out over the curbs, tucking under the rear wing of Luca Volgarten in the Pro Sport Performance Porsche. There they go down the start-finish straight. Sky no longer fully bright blue, but let's call it half-half today over the Most Autodrome. First to second, 1.3 seconds. So last lap, a little bit more with the fastest lap of the race. About 0.2 of a second gained by our race leader. Now even Vlachkov is just trying to find his moment to where to make a move to get past number 23. But Pavlovic, he knows this circuit very well, being a Czech racer. He knows the twists and turns, of which there are 21 turns around the course of the lap. In writing a circuit description for the GT Masters race, local racer Philippe Salacada decided either to only write about 12 corners or to only pretend there are 12 corners. But there are some that are full-blooded corners, others are that little kink here, little kink there. But driver never has much time to think about what they're doing around the circuit here. And I fancy that even Vlachkov in the Sin just got that little bit too close, and now he's lost ground, and now we've got a challenge for second place overall as Marcinovic in the number 7 Maserati starts to make moves on Giuseppe Fascicolo. Maybe he's thinking, I can go faster than you, I've got to get past, because look, I've got an Audi right on my tail. Hamza Vega set the fastest lap of the race, and he's just set the fastest middle sector of anyone in that Racing One Audi in 4th place. And that's why Vega, there he is, number 16, Racing One Audi, right on the tail of Marcinovic. Pavlovic not exactly dropping away behind. He's just set a very good sector time as well. There he goes in the crossbow. He's got the Sin for company. Second, third and fourth covered by, between them, less than a second. But importantly for Jörg Wiebahn in the lead of the race, is Vega has a little look up the inside into turn 1. You're not close enough there, sir, but just keep trying. 2 seconds clear our race leader. 1.996 seconds to be precise. There it is at the bottom of your screen. So Giuseppe Fascicolo, is he holding up Marcinovic? Well, he might be, but he's doing it very well indeed. Yes, in fact he could be, because look how the next grouping is coming to close in on them. Even Vlachkov looking very serious indeed in that Sin 1, now with that green roof. But in front of him, car 23, the KTM Crossbow, Sergei Pavlovic. He's one of the 4 drivers who'll be doing the entire race, the 1-hour race without a driver change. And the number 18 Porsche in 6th place. Sorry, 7th place, Luca Volgarten, number 18 for Pro Sport Performance. Biding his time, tucked in this little grouping. Just not quite close enough to trouble even Vlachkov in the Sin. Over the curbing at turn 13, nice and tidy. Then Benjamin Mazatis in 8th place, and 25, the all-white KTM Crossbow just off the back of this grouping. Wait for a second, he'll come into shot, bottom of screen. Now the replay. This little challenge up the inside into turn 1 by the Sin, but Vlachkov didn't make it stick. And in fact, the loss of momentum hampered him, and it's taken him a couple of laps to pull back. First to second, you can see the gap there. There was our race leader off that brilliant start, Jörg Wiebahn. Next closest thing to 2 seconds clear. At the end of last lap, here through turn 21 he comes. The 2 Maseratis giving chase. In behind, using much more of the curb, is Hamza Vega, and Sergei Pavlovic starting to close right in that number 23 KTM Crossbow. First to second, 0.4 of a second gain, 2.349. And he looked at it last time. Has he done enough braking? Yes, Hamza Vega takes 3rd place away from Marcinovic. Now, what can he do in that Racing One Audi about the Scuderia Villora-Bacos Maserati in front of him? So gaining very useful experience. He had a little sniff last time around, and this time Well, it was good driving too from the pole. He realised that all was lost and didn't decide to turn in across the bows of the Audi. And I guess for Hamza Owega, if he makes a mess of it, 43 really was very taily there. He doesn't have to apologise to a co-driver because he doesn't have one, whereas Marcinovic has got Lucas Kresge to take over in the second half of the race. He's in one of the 9 cars running with 2 drivers. Yes, now Hamza Owega is really starting to nibble at the tail of the driver in second place, Giuseppe Fascicolo. In fact, he's not going to nibble for a great deal longer. He's already, as they got to turn 15, tried to stick his nose up the inside. Didn't work, didn't manage to dislodge Fascicolo. Look at the train of cars. Clearly Fascicolo is holding them up all the way back to the second Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. Number 41's in the hands of Freddie Kramer. No wonder the lights are flashing. Hamza Owega isn't finished with his overtaking yet. He wants to get off into second place. Because although the race-leading Porsche, the Cayman of Jörg Wiebahn, is out front, it's not that far clear. And you really feel at the moment that Hamza Owega ought to be able to pull this one, pull him in once he gets past. Because Owega was better placed in qualifying. Than the Porsche was, but the Porsche so mighty on that run to the first corner, up from fourth place into the lead of the race from the outside of the second row. Owega had started in third, so out-qualified the Porsche, but Wiebahn, well, all the tricks he's learnt across, seems like decades, it's just a handful of years of GT4 racing, proving very good in, most notably, not just how to get one off the line well, but also how to get round a very tight first corner. The gap went out last lap by a massive amount. It was... You can see Fascicolo is now looking backwards into his mirrors because the last lap, as he was challenged by Hamza Owega, he lost, get this, 1 1/3 seconds to the race leader. Suddenly, Wiebahn sitting on an advantage. It was 2 and a bit seconds. It's 3.7 seconds last time around, and probably going out yet more. Fascicolo at this point in the circuit at turn 13, not under attack, but it was up here. They go through 14 into 15, just flash under the bridge. That is the point at which last time around Hamza Owega had a look to see if he could get into second place in the number 16 Audi. Not close enough to do so this time around. In fact, if anything, Marcinovic is starting to fight back in the number 7 Maserati in 4th place. Owega seemed to have the legs on both of them over the last few laps, but now Marcinovic is settling down, and in behind we've got a change for 5th place. Not quite, but certainly a challenge for 5th place from Ivan Vlachov. Tried to go up the inside of Sergei Pavlovich. Pavlovich didn't even consider it. I'm just closing the door across you. Thank you very much indeed. In fact, the move cost the Sin a little bit of speed there. And it suddenly means Luca Volgarten in number 18 Porsche Cayman has closed right in that battle for 6th place. Last lap, another very useful lap indeed for our race leader. Another half-second gain. These are wonderful laps from Jörg Wiebahn. Untroubled by anyone else, he can put his car where he wants to around the circuit and pulling ever further clear in his Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. That's running in the Pro-Am Cup. But Giuseppe Fascicolo in the Maserati in second place is running in the AM Cup, just for good measure, sharing with Romy Dall'Antonio. It really is closing up, but it's a feature of racing around here. It can be incredibly close, but quite tricky to make an overtaking manoeuvre. Except if you do it like that. So, a mistake for the number 7 Maserati driver, and suddenly it's gone rather poorly for him, because instead of being in 4th place and challenging for 3rd, he's lost 2 positions to Sergei Pavlovich and Ivan Vlachkov. Sorry, 3 positions, and also to Luca Volgarten. So for the Maserati that started on pole position, falling to 3rd wasn't a disaster, but falling down to 7th or 8th position most certainly is. He's got Benjamin Bazatis behind him, so therefore he is down in 7th place. 7 on the door, 7 is the position, but that will be disappointing for Maciej Martinovic. See the car bouncing over. Slightly bumpy start-finish straight. past the pits, and then at that point, it's very hard. Slight dip on the entrance to turn 1. It's a 90-degree corner, very hard to get your marking points. And equally at turn 2, the temptation corner they've just been through is just to try and take a little bit too much speed in, or put the power down too soon. And if you lose your momentum, or fail to start building your momentum as soon as you possibly can, you're a sitting duck through the next run of corners through turns 3 and 4. They're both left-hand kinks, slight right-hand kink at turn 5, but by the time they get to turn 6, that is where it's possible to at least light up a passing manoeuvre, but then it tightens so much it's very, very difficult to pull one off, particularly between cars that have been performance balanced, as these have for GT4 racing. So for Marcinovic, down in the number 7 Maserati, his target now is Luca Volgarten, number 18 at Porsche Cayman. Maserati not using as much track, or more to the point, using more track and less curb. There is Volgarten. Maserati tucked in behind Marcinovic. A little bit of bodywork damage, front right-hand corner from the driver's point of view. You can see the little cowling over the headlight opening, bouncing around. Is the bodywork damage underneath? Well, it might be from a run off the circuit, but the most notable one of those was by the driver leading the race, by Jörg Wiebahn, when he went bouncing across the curb on the exit of turn 17, rejoined the circuit at turn 18, but he doesn't seem to have any damage to his Porsche Cayman. Running absolutely beautifully. 4.1 seconds clear. In fact, slightly lost a tiny bit on the last lap. Oh, and in fact, Fasicholo is suddenly coming really good in the better place of the Maseratis. Just set the fastest lap of the race last time to bring it down to 3.8 seconds, the gap between first and second. Hamza Avega, 1.5 seconds further back in third place, not close enough to trouble. Oh dear, Marcinovic almost off into the gravel at turn 1, so perhaps he used his tyres too hard too soon, or else he's just getting a little bit frazzled. Now Benjamin Mazatis may have enough momentum to go past him. Let's have a look. He's the background of that group. Oh, he's trying to challenge Luca Volgarten and outbrakes himself and only just missed the gravel. So suddenly Benjamin Mazatis goes, I have someone new to play with. As you can see, Luca Volgarten at number 18 Porsche, covering the line he needed to cover and just getting in the dirty stuff on the outside. Certainly a lot of tyre balling on the outside. But importantly, Thomas Kresge will get to start the second part of the race because his teammate Marcinovic has kept the car on the island. Now Fasicholo, oh God, you can see pushing very hard and pushing towards the exit of the corner there. Fasicholo, he's starting to take tiny little sections of seconds off the race leader, Jörg Wiebahn. 3.8 seconds clear last time around. Looks like it's going to be about the same. They're trading in hundredths around the first 2 sectors of the lap. And again, Wiebahn's kicked up in the dirt on at the exit of 17. Here's a driver on a charge, Sergei Pavlovich for the Reiter engineering crew. That KTM Crossbow is really starting to challenge for third place now. Got Hamza Ovega, German racer, in third place, but being hunted down and not so far back. The Sin is trying to come into it. Even Vlachov, and then Volgarten in that 6th place overall. New fastest lap of the race, 7/10 taken off the race leader, Giuseppe Fasicholo, closing in 3.1 seconds down on the race leader. Yes, you can see it's come down as Wiebahn goes out of turn 2. As at that point, Fasicholo's Maserati was halfway between turn 1 and turn 2. That incredibly short shoot through the tight first corner to the even tighter second corner. This is the battle for third place. Hamza Ovega holding off Sergei Pavlovich. Replay of just how close Pavlovich is getting to that Audi. Shared at the opening round of the season. You can see the name on the door, Markus Lungstras. Not this time, because Hamza Ovega is racing solo in this opening round of the Central European Cup. Race leader Jörg Wiebahn has managed to get a quarter of a second back out of the chasing Fasicholo on the first part of the lap. Absolutely identical times, within a few thousandths on the second part of the lap. And I would sense 6 or so minutes until the pit window opens is that even Vlachov, who's driving solo, is starting to close in. There he is. He's in 5th place overall. Just behind he's got Luca Volgarten, who's been very clean and tidy in this event so far. So 3rd place is the Audi, 4th place ducking up the inside, having a little look here, little look there is Pavlovich. And Vlachov in the Sin, red, white and green. From Sphere Club Motorsport, slightly over the curves there, Luca Volgarten. He's starting to do something about it. Then comes Marcinovic, who's managed to drop Mazatis' KTM crossbow, and he's sort of recomposing himself after those couple of errors. Haven't been more purposeful through turns 20 to 21. That's given the momentum to number 18, but Volgarten diminishing returns if you try the outside line down into turn 1. He's right on the tail of Vlachov's Sin, who's got better acceleration out of the corner. Looks pretty even there. Porsche Cayman driver doing all he possibly can. And just to give you a time check on our race leader, the second part of his lap not as good as the first half of the lap, and the gap came down to 2.46 seconds, so 7/10 of a second gain towards the end of last lap by the chasing Maserati. This battle for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, hard to take one eyes away from. I sense in the background, it looked as though we had the white KTM crossbow with Benjamin Mazatis actually losing a bit of momentum. I may be wrong, might have just been a foreshortening of the image, but he wasn't that far behind this grouping, and he looks like he's going slowly out of a corner. We'll see. Because this is the group that runs down to 6th place. The Porsche at the back of the grouping, Luca Volgarten. The next car in the line should be Marcin Marcinovic. He should be 1.5 seconds back. He's not there. He's fallen 2 more positions. So I'm afraid the Polish race has had a race of decline from pole position. He's now back down into, I think that will make him in 9th position. He seems to be behind Mazatis and also Freddie Kramer in the Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. So maybe the white car is still going slowly or not at the speed of its rivals. It wasn't the white KTM crossbow of Mazatis, but in fact the number 7 7 Maserati of Marcinovic. Sometimes you just see a flash in the back of the screen. You have to be very quick to identify who it is. Or maybe they're involved in a moment, but come what may, Mazatis is ahead, and with 2 positions lost to Marcinovic. And now this battle for 3rd is getting very, very tight indeed. Ovega holds on. Pavlovic getting closer and closer and starting to dip here and there. See what he can do. Right in behind, Vlachov in the Sin. And then holding the watching brief, Luca Volgarten. Gap between 1st and 2nd, it came down to 2.5 seconds. It's now down to 1.8 seconds. Gaining more than half a second a lap is Giuseppe Fascicolo. Just went out of our shot there, down at turns 9 and 10. In the background of the shot, you can just see the Maserati accelerating away in 2nd place. Then comes this battle for 3rd. Now let's have a look. Here is our race leader, Jörg Wiebahn, turning in on the super slow-mo, bouncing over the curves. We saw this in qualifying, getting the car back onto terra firma. The question is how much of the curbs you use. Easy to try and grab a whole lot more, but it unsettles the car. That's turn 1 to turn 2. Here is our race leader, 1.8 seconds. He was down. He's in fact responded, set his fastest first sector of anybody. That's why we saw him bouncing over the curbs so remarkably, and seems to be responding. Came down to 1.8 seconds. He was sitting on the lead, don't forget, of 5 seconds or so over Giuseppe Fascicolo. In fact, it wasn't always Fascicolo. They were battling for position behind, and it was Marcinovic in the other Maserati that held 2nd early on. However, times have changed. Marcinovic has gone backwards. And then increasingly, Fascicolo has gone forwards, but not this lap. He lost 0.3 of a second to the race leader. Pit window opens in 2 minutes' time. So it's been a lovely day here at the Most Autodrome. We've almost got to the halfway point in the first race of the opening round of the GT4 Central European Cup. Fast and furious racing. It's Allied Racing Porsche leading the way in the hands of Jörg Wiebahn, being chased down by Giuseppe Fascicolo. Then this fantastic 4-car battle for 3rd place. The Audi of Hamza Ovega leading that group. Then comes the KTM crossbow of Sergei Pavlovic. Then Ivan Vlachov in the Sin R1, and number 18 Porsche, the Porsche Cayman of Luca Volgarten for Pro Sport Performance in 6th place. And then there's is that Jörg Wiebahn going very slowly? Let's just have a little look. Our race leader, Jörg Wiebahn, has got it wrong at the sweepers. There's the race leader spinning away a 2-second lead over Giuseppe Fascicolo, who'll be saying thank you, having failed to negotiate turn 7, where he's spun, and going very slowly as he tries to build up to speed. He's just in front of Hamza Ovega, so he's held on to what became 2nd place with a spin just in front, just before the pit window opens. It'll be after this lap. They will go on to the final lap they can do before the pit window opens. But we had seen over a series of laps, we saw Giuseppe Fasichella closing the gap a bit more. Then we had that response from Jörg Wiebahn, and maybe just in response to having to turn the wick up a bit and just press on, Wiebahn overcooked it down into turn 6, and then by the time he got to turn 7, he was spinning that Porsche Cayman. Now he's got Hamza Avega right under his rear wing as they sweep through that final corner over the curbs. So instead of a 4-car battle for third place, we've got a 5-car battle for second. So erstwhile race leader Jörg Wiebahn, who made that brilliant start from 4th into first place by the opening corner on lap 1, has suddenly got company, and lots of it. Hamza Avega clattering the curbs on the inside, trying to unsettle him, but in fact possibly only unsettled himself. So Wiebahn lives to continue in second place. But for a driver who was sitting on what looked a very, very comfortable lead in this 1-hour race, suddenly things have got a little bit more interesting. His teammate Rob Severs, Dutch racer in the pits, will be thinking, oh, well, it's not going to be quite as easy as I thought. Giuseppe Fasichella will be handing in over from the lead to his teammate Romy Dall'Antonio. But for this lot, quick into the pits and a quick out could help. They have to be the mandatory amount of time at a standstill, so you can't have a faster pit stop, but you can do the frills if you want, do them as well as you want, the ins and the out laps, and you may gain position. So suddenly for Rob Severs, who'll be taking over this 43 Porsche, things looking very different indeed. A 5-second lead would have been nice and comfortable. Instead, down in second place, 4.5 seconds down on the race-leading Maserati. Giuseppe Fasichella, series of quick laps from him resulted in the pressure being applied to Jörg Wiebahn, who previously was enough clear not to have the worry on the pressure. But once Fasichella closed in, he's not going in this time around. He could have done, but he's decided to go on. He's enjoying it so much. Suddenly, just a different occasion. Hamza Avega cutting a very tight line into turn 21. Does that lead to a wide line on the exit? Not too bad. Doing what he can. And just worth pointing out, Avega is very short in racing experience, and now he's gaining it. If he can put one over almost the master of European GT4 racing over the past 5 seasons or so, as the championship has grown and grown and grown and grown, which is Jörg Wiebahn, 2-time champion in the European Championship. And yet Avega is all over the back of him. Must be said, the Porsche Cayman was developed far before the Audi RM8 LMS came on tap for GT4 racing, and as a result, with GT4 moving very, very quickly in terms of development, you feel that it's possibly not as wieldy as the Audi that is chasing it. But Jörg Wiebahn knows where to put his car. Challenge, trying to get the power down earlier as they exit turn 10. Hasn't quite resulted in a place change, but the move could be coming at any point around here, which will make our race leader, Giuseppe Fasichella, he can't quite see, possibly could just there, in his rear view mirror as he turned left through turn 12. He'll be smiling because they're fighting very, very hard indeed. But as this goes on, I don't suppose many of these intend to come in and make their pit stops right here, right now. What would you do if you're Hamza Avega? You're running stuck behind a driver who's a 2-time champion. He knows where to place his car, doesn't lose position. Do you come in now? You've got to react to what he's doing. I would probably come in now. And for Hamza, he's coming back out again. Whereas Wiebahn is handing over to Rob Severs, who is coming in, well, the car from 4th place. So Sergej Pavlovich and Luka Volgarten from 6th. They're the first of the top 6 to come in to make their pit stops. Sin continues with Ivan Blachov at the wheel in 5th place. And for those coming in, it seems interminable having to run at what seems to be walking pace when they knock their cars down to the maximum speed limit for the pit lane. Pit lane shouldn't be too crowded. Not at this point. And there's the unique opening of a KTM Crossbow's lid to the cockpit. Comes up on 2 arms. So rises and then goes forward. So good camera work going around the car. Sergej not getting out to the number 23 because he's continuing in the second part of the race. So he'll have an understanding exactly of how the tyres are. It's always the thing when you hand over to someone else. You can tell them the tyres are so-so, but they can't quite quantify how so-so they are. Driver change, Luca Volgarten out to the number 18 Porsche Cayman, handing over to Moritz Österreich, son of Marcus. I wonder if Marcus has raced here, because, of course, though he raced many moons ago in Germany and across much of Europe, Moss hasn't been used that much, but he turned to truck racing. It's been a very, very popular circuit for truck racing. Huge crowds come to attend it here and in Hungary in particular for the European Championship. Hamza becoming frustrated, so frustrated he's not bothered using the curbing at all as he tries to get past Jörg Wiebahn, and looks like the nose is going to be in front by the time they get to turn one. But don't forget, Wiebahn was so strong on the brakes, so late on the brakes, that he took the lead at the start. Can he do so again, or has he outbraked himself? Well, who's to doubt the Master? But the Master then was too deep into turn two. Looks like a better exit by Ovega, but Wiebahn knows how and where to position the car. He said, you're not going to sweep up the inside of me with greater momentum. You have to go around the outside if you've got greater momentum. See if you can make that work. Even Vlachov tucked in behind in the sin. Just thinking he might be able to benefit, but it's as you were before, gentlemen. Getting past the turn 7, where we saw Wiebahn go for that spin a handful of laps ago that cost him the lead. In the meantime, way up the road. 5.2 seconds clear last time around to Giuseppe Fascicolo. Now weighted David Clark, handing over to Matthias Dresser. Dresser, the star in that car. Polish racer. And should be able to start making that fly, but the car listed at 10th. It was higher than that, but with the pit stop done, he will rise up the order of that, I am sure. Bottom half of the field, well, they've become the bottom half of the field, some of them because they've made their pit stops, but it's largely the second half of the field in terms of pace that have made their pit stops. Race leaders continue on their way. Giuseppe Fascicolo, 5.2 seconds clear of Jörg Wiebahn's Porsche. Car number 18, that was one of the early pit stoppers, under investigation for crossing the white line at pit entry, so you can't blame Moritz Österreich for that. He took it over, went out of the pits. It was Luca Volgarten who came in from 6th place. So that could be one of those expensive little lessons for not being sufficiently accurate as the cars come into pit lane. Hamza in from 3rd place. Fascicolo continues for this lap and possibly one more in the lead of the race. Romy Dall'Antonio will be waiting to take over for Scuderia Viorba course. And Jörg Wiebahn likewise stays out in the Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. And he's got Rob Severs waiting to take that over. Hamza Vega, nobody waiting to take it over because he's one of the 4 drivers who are racing solo here. German racer stays on board. German racer from Cologne. This is his first serious season of racing. Car number 25, Benjamin Mizatis getting out, and the Polish racer, Finnish racer Ilmari Korpivara takes over. Waiting to get strapped in. See the roll cage of the KTM crossbow covered by that extravagant rising awning. So many bits to fiddle with, but you've got to get them right if you're going for about half an hour of racing. And certainly needed that strap. So Korpivara down on the deck. A little bit of bodywork rubbing, clearly in the early laps of the race, the front left-hand corner. In fact, to tell you what, it wasn't the first half of the race. In qualifying, it went out like that, so maybe a little off to kiss the tyres in qualifying. Bodywork is intact. You can hear another car pulling away. In comes the Sin in the background, even Vlachov rose as high as 4th place after Ovega came in to make his pit stop last time around. All the top runners are in. Fascicolo's in from the lead, Wiebahn from 2nd. In fact, the only car not to come in, is Freddie Fast, waiting for him to come in the Lechner Mercedes. He was running down outside the top 10 in this 13-car field, and he's decided to leave it as late as possible when he'll come in to hand over to himself, because he's running solo as well. Now, it's an advantage for the one-driver crews, because the drivers know just how hard to push. They'll assess the brake performance, the tyre performance, and can compare it to what went on in the first part of the race, whereas anyone taking over might take a corner or 3 or 4, just get to understand the feel and balance, how things have changed, changing conditions. Wind seems to have dropped away almost entirely. All these things make that tiny bit of difference. Here's Romy Dall'Antonio taken over from race leader Giuseppe Fascicolo, the number 77 Viorba course Maserati. All looks very orderly indeed. Fascicolo more experienced than Dall'Antonio. These little things you have to do where your fingers turn into thumbs, a handful of thumbs, but we're looking at the 43 car now. He snaps over to that. That's Rob Severs who's strapped into that, and Jörg Wiebahn who's got out. Therefore, all that experience of hopping in and out of Porsche Caymans would have helped them. But it's still a minimum time at a standstill. Wait for it, wait for it. Stupid to go a second early and pick up a 20-second penalty. So off goes Rob Severs. Where will he come out into the race? He'll come out, well, he's lost several positions because it looked as though the Reiter Engineering KTM Crossbow, the one with the orange flashes, has gone through. Yes, he has. He's done very well. He's got right onto the tail of the erstwhile race leader. Ovega seems to have lost a place or two. Ovega's down in fourth. Yes, well, how things have changed. But don't forget that number 18 Porsche has a penalty coming its way for crossing the white line at pit entry. So this is the race leader, Romy Dall'Antonio. How's that for competition? Suddenly it's thrown right up. The number 18 Porsche tucked in behind the 23 KTM Crossbow, the 16 Audi, four makes of car, the top four positions, then a second Porsche Cayman from the driver who was the crew that was leading the race in the hands of Jörg Wiebahn. He's handed over to Rob Severs, and the Dutchman finding himself down in fifth place. So super close after the pit stops. Absolutely fantastic. Look at this. Our race leader, second, third, fourth and fifth, all in the same shot. I'd suggest they're covered by about 2.5 seconds maximum. And 18 makes a move and sweeps into the lead. Maurice Durstreich, we still don't know what the punishment is going to be. Is it going to be a stop-and-go penalty? Haven't been told. Under investigation. The team manager of the new race leading car has been called to the race director immediately. Hamza Ovega, he was there in the first half of the race and flashing away, but he's fallen from third to fourth. And the car that's dropped out of this grouping is Ivan Vlashkov, who was about the last one to come, one of the last few to come in the Sin, another driver who was driving solo, but before the pit stops he was in this grouping, and now he isn't. The order has been shuffled. It's the Pro Sport Performance Porsche leading the race now. And let's just have a little look. This is the move by Moritz Durstreich. Oh, done very tidily indeed. Up into turn 14. Down into turn 1. It's still the Porsche in the lead. And now we've got Rob Severs trying to move up from fifth to fourth. And he's putting real pressure on Sergei Pavlovich. Real nose-to-tail stuff. I said the top five were covered by around 2 seconds. 2.1 seconds on the start-finish line. And we've got someone who's starting to really rock it. Not yet in the picture, in 7th place overall. But it's Patrick Niederhauser. Taken over from someone I called his sister earlier, but Marilyn is not his sister, has the same surname. Just happens to be his partner. Had the same surname. I asked how common is Niederhauser as a Germanic surname. They're both Swiss, but it's not particularly common, so what's the chance of that? But I'm glad I checked. So boyfriend and girlfriend, both with the same surname. Romy Dall'Antonio now getting Hamza Ovega starting to look quite serious behind him as the Porsche Cayman starts to make a break in the lead of the race. He was clear by 0.3 of a second last time. It looks as though it's gone out almost to a full second for Moritz Durstreich at the moment. And by the way, even Vlachov fell 6 and a bit seconds off the pack with his in and out to his pit stop in the Sin. And Rob Severs, you can see at the back of this grouping, black, blue and green Porsche Cayman, losing ground a little bit. He was challenging a few moments ago, and now he's just falling off the back. It is almost a second between first and second. It looks like it's come right down again. It fell to 0.9 of a second on the start-finish straight, but by the time they got to the braking area for turn 1, it looked as though the Maserati was closing in on the Porsche Cayman. Hard to tell. It looks like it's just under a second to me. Hamza Ovega, lights flashing, up in third place. Lapping way faster than any of them, though, was Patrick Niederhauser, but it's someone even further back. It's Maciej Drescher, Polish racer, in the number 24. He's taken over from David Klar. I said he'd be quick. He certainly looked good in qualifying when he was the driver at the wheel. His teammate David Clark qualified the car 12th out of the 13 runners. But Drescher's faster than all of them, so a little bit of a mistake out the back, and we're having possible change of position. Yeah, it looks like Ovega has nipped through and suddenly Severs as well, so 2 cars got compromised down at turn 10. The KTM crossbow for Pavlovich, and ahead of him Romy Dall'Antonio fell from 2nd to 3rd and is about to lose 3rd place as well, I would suggest, because Rob Severs is going, I'm not hanging around anymore, 20 minutes left in this race, I'm going up into 3rd position. I like podiums. So let's have a little look. Mistake I would suggest by Dall'Antonio, compromised the driver of the KTM crossbow, Pavlovich, who was swinging on a wide outside line, suddenly found that he considered he might be collecting the back of the Maserati, lifted off, ran wide. So he's got to do it all over again. There's the Sin in the background, starting to pick up the pace, and certainly with Vlachov at the wheel, was lapping faster than, in fact, all the cars ahead of it last time around. But 2 cars behind, going considerably faster. Patrick Niederhauser, who's about 3 seconds further behind the Sin, in 7th. And Maciej Drescher, who's down in 10th place, way back, a long way back, having taken over from David Clark, but absolutely flying. So Ovega, 2nd place, 3.5 seconds down on the race leader. He's got his plate full because Rob Severs in the 43 Porsche Cayman pushing very hard indeed. Romy Dall'Antonio trying not to make the mistake he made last time around. He's trying to fight back in the 77 Scuderia Viorba course Maserati. How the pendulum has swung in this race. It looks as though Jörg Wiebahn had everything under control in his Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. Then he started to have the gap come down, and then, of course, he went for that spin, dropped him from 1st to 2nd, and now the car is fighting back in the hands of Rob Severs. There we are. The meat in the sandwich between the Audi and the other Maserati. And here's our race leader. We've got an incident between car 16 and 77 under investigation. 77 is the Maserati of Romy Dall'Antonio, and number 16, the racing one, Hamza Ovega Audi. That's the Audi in 2nd place. And 77, the Maserati white with the 2 blue stripes, in 4th place. I'll keep an eye on the screen. And how's this? Our race leader, number 18. He's clear by 3.487 seconds. He will be getting 10 seconds added to his total time after the race. If I do the maths just now, that will put him perilously close to falling behind even Vlachov for 6th place. In fact, more than that, it will put him behind even Vlachov. And with the pace of Patrick Niederhauser, who's in 7th, yep, he will fall behind that as well. That's now only 7.4 seconds down. So that little mistake on the way in by Luca Volgarten will drop what could well be the race-winning car, the first one to the finish line, down to 7th place overall. You probably find the little manoeuvre saved him a second, but it's cost him, saved him half a second, but it's cost him 10. Might have only saved him 1/10 of a second, but young drivers have to learn these things. Patrick Niederhauser in the left of your shot, the blue and pink KTM crossbow, fastest driver on the track, bottled up behind even Vlachov down at turns 9 and 10, but he's the driver who's been setting the fastest laps of the race. Now his lap pace is starting to fall off a little bit, and behind him, just trying to see how many seconds behind, Maciej Drescher, he's a long way behind, in 10th, has been the fastest driver for the past 2 laps as well. So KTM crossbows attacking from the rear or around the outside in the case of Patrick Niederhauser. Is he going to come up the crest of the hill, turn 14, ahead of the Sin, who's on the outside line? He's swept around, kept his foot in. Very good job indeed. In fact, if he dies at the inside here, 2 places gained in not even 2 corners. So Niederhauser absolutely flying. Vlachov was passed, and then Sergei Pavlovich as well. 1 fell swoop, or 2 fell swoops. Take a look on the right-hand side of the screen. The blue and pink KTM crossbow sweeps past the Sin around the outside at turn 15, keeps his foot in before they get to turn 16. Just on the apex of the corner, he's through past Pavlovich as well. Pavlovich at this point of turn 16, approaching turn 16, has it covered and then gets slightly muscled out wide, but he saw him and made space. Great case of putting himself in the right position, took a very different line to the others down at turn 13, gained the extra momentum and really made it work. Over the crest of the hill, up to 14, 15. And look how far he's dropped them in the space of next to no time at all. How high can Patrick Niederhauser climb? Next target, Romy Dall'Antonio's Maserati. That's holding down 4th place. Blackhoff in the Sin being pushed increasingly hard by the Finnish racer Korpivaara. Korpivaara tucked in behind in that grouping, and now in the white KTM Crossbow at the back of the group. Number 25. Quarter of an hour plus 1 lap remaining. And the KTM Crossbow sandwich has the meat in the middle, which is the Sin R1, and for a few laps it looked as though Blackhoff was looking mighty the second half of the race, just not got the performance. Maybe he's taken too much life out of those tyres. Of course, as soon as I say that, he suddenly starts pressing the car in front rather than dropping away, but that might just be points on the circuit where he's good. Through turns 20 and 21, the final 2 corners of the lap. Pavlovic in front of him in 6th place seems to be doing the right job, taking the right lines. Down the start-finish straight, the sleeker-looking Sin just has far more momentum and, well, suddenly made it easy. Just galled by me saying it looks like he's backing off a bit, because clearly he's not. And while the Sin has just gained a place to move up to 6th place. Look how easily he did this. He looked as though well, it is a more aerodynamic design, may I say, but he clearly got a very good exit from the 21st and final corner. And Blackhoff made it look easy, but look at that speed differential. I mean, it doesn't look as though Pavlovic is standing still, but comparatively he really was. And at this point he's thought, well, there's no point out breaking myself and ending up in that gravel trap or going up the escape road. So he accepted 2nd place in that little particular battle. Pavlovic now up into 6th, but Patrick Niederhauser already nearly 4 seconds clear of them, having burst his way past this partnership. Rob Severs under some pressure, but going well. But Patrick Niederhauser is the person challenging him. Niederhauser, who's risen his way up through the ranks in that number 26 KTM. He's got past, on this lap alone, he's got past the 77 Maserati. You can see it's still just tucked in behind, but for Romy Dall'Antonio it's 5th place, not 4th. And for Rob Severs it's still 3rd place, but for how much longer, as Patrick Niederhauser really pushes. Took over from his girlfriend Marilyn Niederhauser, who did the first leg of the race. But again, you can see the KTM Crossbows really rather suffer in a straight line. Their rather boxy design, clearly not quite as aerodynamic as some of their rivals. Because Rob Severs' Porsche Cayman just that bit more sleek, but again it gets the power down very well indeed. The KTM Crossbow, Patrick Niederhauser lapping considerably faster than the Porsche Cayman over the last half dozen laps. That's why he's not just caught him, but he's in a position to try and pass him. Patrick Niederhauser looking very serious, now up into 4th place. Robert Severs is holding down 3rd place. For Niederhauser, who started in 10th, this has been a great race. Marilyn, his girlfriend, did the first leg of the race, and Patrick has set the fastest lap of the race while leading this chase, and suddenly 3rd place is his. Makes it very easily at a corner where we already saw him make a pass. That's turn 15. And he's gained about 3 places in the interim. Sin was past the Porsche Cayman and the Maserati. Just look how much momentum he's carried around the outside. This is the opposite line to the one he tried when he came past the Sin a few laps ago. Then past the other KTM Crossbow, that's Pavlovic. Takes it right to the edge of the circuit, but just keeps on pressing. Did make it look remarkably easy, and look how Niederhauser has dropped the chasing pack. He's put about half a second Let's just see what the gap is. Is it half a second? 0.962, nearly a full second over Rob Severs. Romy Dall'Antonio. Maserati tucked in behind, even Vlashkov trying to fight his way back. But the driver who's still lapping faster than any of them is still down in 10th place. It's Maciej Dresser, taken over from David Clark, but he was about 45 seconds behind the next car in the line. So the clock is counting down, just over 10 minutes remaining, and that won't be enough to let him close it, but he's got it down to... Can't see until he crosses the start-finish line, but it will be reduced, but not by enough to really make him move up the order, which is a shame when you're pressing so hard. Well, he lapped faster than all but one of his rivals last time around. No, sorry. He was 2 seconds or more faster than all but one of his rivals last time around, but he's still 36 seconds down on the number 41, the second of the Allied Racing Caymans in the hands of Nicholas Scholl. So he's doing what he can, but it's not going to be enough to be rewarded with a helping of points. As it is, he should pick up a few points for placing where he places. But this is the battle now for position out on the circuit. Hamza Avega troubling Moritz Österreich. Don't forget that Österreich has a problem awaiting him. 10 seconds will be added to his time after the end of the race. And at the moment, that will drop him to 6th place overall. So Hamza Avega determined to win this on the track, and so he ought to be able to do, but he got in front but was on then the wrong line for turn 2. So Moritz Österreich continues in the lead of the race. Has the team told him he's got a 10-second penalty to be added to his time at the end of the race? Hopefully he won't take risks accordingly, but right now he clearly wants to win this on the circuit, and though Hamza Avega got the nose of the Racing 1 Audi up the inside into turn 1, he didn't have the momentum to carry up towards turn 2 and then bounced over the curbs at that second corner, and as a result was delayed in getting the power down. But he's attacking back, and now he's already swept past into the lead of the race on the track and overall, because the Porsche Cayman from Pro Sport Performance has a 10-second penalty for a pit stop infringement, which was crossing the white line in the wrong place on the way into pit lane in the hands of Luca Volgarten. So the young German will have learnt an important lesson from that little misdemeanor. And for Hamza Avega, this could be the highlight of his very nascent and young racing career. Yeah, kept it neat, kept it tidy, and with the next corner always coming sometime very soon indeed at the Most Autodrome, that helped him a lot, because his chaser then had to back off. The Sin has never been lonely in this race. Even Blackoff still in 6th place. There he is, just behind the 77 Maserati. Always had someone to play with. And the driver in 2nd in the race, if he gets 10 seconds added to his time, which is Moritz Österreich in the number 18 Porsche Cayman, that will drop him to 7th place. And the last driver to be promoted will be the driver in 7th place now, which is Ilmari Korpivara. We saw him getting strapped into the Hollinger Reiter Engineering KTM crossbow. And Romy Dall'Antonio pushing very hard now in that 77 Maserati, desperate to try and unseat Rob Severs. So what does Dall'Antonio have to do to get past Severs? He's trying here and there. Vlashkov tucked in behind, and a bit of a challenge coming around the outside but into the dirt. You can see that one coming for 25. Ilmari Korpivara. Then Nicholas Scholl joining the back of their train in the second of the Allied Racing Porsches. This is the mistake made by Korpivara. So just he was looking to challenge even Vlachkov in the sin. He just ran in too hot into the corner. And Nicholas Scholl closing up in the second of the Allied Racing Porsche Caymans. Not that one, that's leading the grouping, which is Rob Severs, but the one at there, the back of the pack. When Hamza Avega took the lead of this race very well indeed from Moritz Österreich, he looks like he might just pull clear. He's only just got a second clear, but Österreich has been fighting back, and last time around matched him to within a tenth, and that before took a bit out of the advantage. So not all over yet, apart from that pesky 10-second penalty that's going to be added to his time, that will pitch him down to, at the moment, it actually might just be to 6th place. It's very, very close with Ivan Vlachkov. So as long as the number 18 Porsche over the next 5 minutes and a bit can gain another 2 or 3 seconds, he should end up, I think, in 4th. Let's see. Nicholas Scholl really closing in the AM class entry from Allied Racing on the back of that pack. But the big problem for Moritz Österreich is the fact he's got a driver who's been really, really flying. He's just half a second down, or was at the start of this lap. That's Patrick Niederhauser. Don't forget he picked it up in about 10th, might have been 8th place from his girlfriend Marilyn, and has just been pressing and going forward, and Moritz Österreich resists him for now as they go through turns 20 and 21 onto the start-finish straight. But the KTM racer, you can see him suffering again in the straight line as the sleeker Porsche Cayman pulls away. But when he gets the twisty stuff, those KTM crossbows really do look incredibly handy. First to second, 1.5 seconds, then 0.5 back from second to third. Second place is the number 18 Porsche. Giving chase is Niederhauser in the KTM in number 26 in third place. Much, much, much tighter for the battle from 4th backwards. Rob Severs in the 43 Porsche goes for a spin. Dan Antonio got very close behind. I sense that Vlachov has got past the lot of them. Oh, it might be about a 5-place loss there. And there's bodywork damage. Oh, and clearly the Maserati has done a bit of clouting. Yes, that front... Oh, dear, well, I'm afraid that tells the tale. Clouted the back of the Porsche. He was getting close to him. That Porsche, number 43, been leading the group. Rob Severs given a clout. Vlachov has come through. And Nicholas Scholl, let's have a little look. Minding their own business. Fine into turn 1, coming into turn 2. Well, you can't put the blame on the door. Blow to the front as well for Rob Severs. Having a look from the rear angle through turn 1, all okay. Severs turning into turn 2. And look, so is Romy Dall'Antonio, but using the 43 Porsche to turn the corner. You can see little bits falling off. Bodywork damage, the front left-hand corner for 43 and Severs. So Romy Dall'Antonio with the sin pushing him very hard indeed. Just went in too fast into turn 2. Half spun. Porsche Cayman, teammate, everybody else comes past. And with the front right-hand corner pointing at a ridiculous angle after that contact, I'm afraid that Maserati will not complete the race, will not complete this lap. So parked at the side of the circuit. Well done indeed to Dall'Antonio for at least getting it out of harm's way. But there we are, 2 images that tell the story of one contact, and it was a contact. The 77 and 43. 43 reported for spilling liquid, but I think he's pulled off the circuit. Certainly the 77 has done so there. Romy Dall'Antonio, he'll be disappointed with that, but it was a great battle out on the circuit. So Hamza Avega leading the race, tucked in behind his Moritz Österreich, 1.6 seconds down, and then Patrick Niederhauser in no time at all. As Avega gets it wrong, goes off the circuit, comes back on in front of Niederhauser, who clatters him up the back. You can see the damage to the front of the KTM crossbow. That surely can't continue. Bits falling off it. I think the race might be going back the way. What's the damage of the Audi? It might be going back the way suddenly of Moritz Österreich in that number 18 Porsche. Let's have a look at the back of the Audi. Well, there isn't going to be much of a front of the number 26 crossbow to look at. Surely that's going to fall off very soon. That is dangerous. He's going to have to be flagged into pit lane. I'm sure he can see past the flapping bodywork, but this is the moment for Moritz Österreich to fight back. Don't forget he's got that penalty. Now I wonder, they're only just going past the 43 that's smoking. It was reported for dropping liquid, red flag. So I think the problem for Avega there, he hit the spilt liquid and went for a spin. 26 clattered, that driver there, Patrick Niederhauser, clattered into the back of him. That is the end of the race. It only had about a minute left on the clock. The number 18 Porsche nearly hit the back of the two of them down there at turn 7. Let's have a look at the replay. Over into the first of the chicanes. Here's the place being gained in the first part of the sequence by 26. Great move, but then running wide was Hamza Owega. Comes onto the back onto the circuit right in front of 26, who clatters him. Damage to both cars, through the gravel on the outside for Maurice Erstreich. But because it's a red flag situation, it will be wound back to the end of the previous lap, and that means Owega will take a victory by the smallest of margins. Presumably from 26 and 18, but 26 positions were changing, so all change in those final few moments. We lost the 77 Maserati, hit 43, and then everybody else seemed to have a moment of their own, and that tells the story. The damaged front end, no blame attached to Patrick Niederhauser there. He was the driver making the charge. 43, Rob Severs, well, he kept going and put the liquid on the circuit. We hadn't caught that moment for 23 on more. That was the most extraordinary place to go for an impact. And that was a local driver, Sergei Pavlovich. I would suggest nobody has ever been up that bank in a racing car before, so getting it wrong out of turn 9 on the drop liquid. And for the cameramen around the circuit, they're just checking their equipment, as there's been all sorts of stuff being thrown at them. Rob Severs, it all went wrong for him very late in the race. Car 77 has been given 30 seconds added to his total race time for causing that collision with 43. And for Rob Severs, most unfortunate. There's Marilyn Niederhauser looking, along with Thomas Enger from Reiter Engineering, just looking to check. But they're doing some basic maths as time penalties are added and taken away. And in fact, with the 10-second penalty, number 18 has been dropped only as far as third place. So victory by 2.092 seconds for Hamza Owega. That's his first win, and he'll be delighted with that. Certainly got fraught. Patrick Niederhauser deserved better than second. What a charge for him. And with that 10-second penalty, Luca Volkgarten doing just enough to finish ahead of Jörg Wiebahn and Rob Severs, who had that collision, or were clouted more to the point by the 77 Maserati, which has been dropped out of the order, down to 10th place overall with a 30-second time penalty. So things changed very fast indeed in those closing laps. And for Massey Drescher, well, he gained an extra position by going up to 9th after his fantastic charge, setting fastest laps of the race in his KDM Crossbow. But racing on his own for the number 16 Racing 1 crew, the lonely Audi in the race, takes victory. Hamza Owega, I'm sure he'll be absolutely delighted in that. But there'll be many, many stories to tell after the opening race of the inaugural rounds of the GT4 Central European Cup. And if any drivers have a car that can roll freely back to Parc Fermé, that'd be great. But obviously we've seen a few of them stuck out on the circuit. Drama all the way to the finish. And just to reiterate, 43 came home, was listed classified in 4th place, 11 Vlashkov in 5th. Marilyn Niederhauser. In fact, the car doesn't look as damaged as it did when it was driving around the circuit, but the front end of the car skewed and off to the side. But second place for Patrick Niederhauser there. Marilyn delighted with that. Can't wait to get him out of the car fast enough. So, great helping of points for the Niederhausers there. And the full haul of points will, of course, be going to Hamza Owega in his Racing 1 Audi. And for a lot of the drivers out there, it will be a case of what could have gone better. But for a lot of them, it was just putting down some markers in this championship. And if you can have damage like that, which was not your fault, Patrick Niederhauser, he couldn't avoid Hamza Owega when Hamza came back onto the circuit, having gone off through the sequence of S's, turns 6, 7 and 8. It's reported there was liquid on the track, but certainly with a handful of cars being caught out on it right at the end of the race, including Sergei Pavlovich, who went up the banking on the inside of the circuit at turn 9.
Thank you.
There's Max Brahms, series organiser, handing out the caps.
Congratulations.
Yes, exactly. Congratulations. They'll be making their way to the podium. Waiting to see Hamza Owega. Did Hamza get back? Because, of course, he got clouted up the rear when he rejoined. No sign yet of his Racing 1 Audi. It's always a bit of a nightmare for the people organising a podium when suddenly they've got all the things sorted out, however close the race is, and the order gets changed. Third place in the end with that 10-second penalty for Luca Volgarten, cutting the line on the way into the pits. Meant that even though we had the 18 car finishing so strongly, it fell down to third place overall. Marilyn Niederhauser started the number 26 KTM Crossbow, and boyfriend Patrick Niederhauser brought it right home. But Hamza Vega, you don't have many races where you get clouted, go off, get clouted up the back and still come away with victory. But he's done just that for the Racing One Audi team. And incident aplenty, 13 cars, seemed like 26 cars out around the circuit. Very, very busy indeed. But for a lot of the runners, the last few laps just went a little bit wrong. And you certainly have to feel for Rob Severs, who was given the blow up the back by Romy Dall'Antonio's Maserati, pulled off at the side of the circuit. And for the driver who started that, Jörg Wiebahn, who was so quick away from the starting line, went from fourth up into the lead by the opening corner, then pulled clear, and then that 77 car with Giuseppe Fascicolo at the wheel started coming back at him. It was a dramatic, dramatic race, but a little bit too much drama at the end, so hopefully the drivers will have a little think about life. And there, the Racing One Audi has made it back. So for Hamza Vega, he will be absolutely delighted. Made his GT4 debut in the European Championship just a few weeks ago at Zolder, and now racing on his own this weekend. I think he's very much enjoyed his first visit, not just because he's taken victory, his first visit to the Moss Autodrome, but because he got to race and really dice with drivers he would have seen at the front end of the field last year. So he's really made quite an impact. Driver who has come to racing in his mid to late 20s. Walking around trying to check for damage. Well, the damage, I think, Hamza, is at the back end of the car. That's where you came back onto the circuit and were given a thump by Patrick Niederhauser. No blame really apportioned to either. That nice moment for a driver when you can take those earplugs out, let a little of the heat out that's built up inside your helmet. And already there are people lurking behind him with microphones wanting an interview. So, the inaugural winner of the first race at the opening rounds of the 2018 GT4 Central European Cup, Hamza Vega. That much we know. And then with the time penalties behind, Moritz Österreich still with that 10-second penalty, classified 11.5 seconds behind the race winner, taking third place. But there's the race winning car. Looks fine from the front. Haven't quite seen the back. Yeah, Hamza, plenty of stories to tell, but the red flag came out and I would suggest saved him. Because certainly another lap and Patrick Niederhauser would have been through, but then we had those incidents down at the S's towards the bottom end of the circuit, turns 7 and 8 in particular, that led to those cars clattering into each other. The KTM looks a little more respectable now. The front end's been put back into the correct position. But for Patrick and Marilyn Niederhauser, very happy with life there. Started down in 10th position in the hands of Marilyn, but up to second. It could have been victory on the track had we just had the race running to its full 1 hour distance. But the flag came out, the red flag, counting the time back to just under 56 minutes of the 1 hour. And that was enough to give victory to Hamza Vega. Second place to the duo here, Marilyn Niederhauser and Patrick Niederhauser. Then Moritz Österreich and Luca Volgarten will be slightly cursing that 10-second penalty, but they would have been second, come what may. Vega just had enough time in hand, but it dropped them back to third behind the Niederhauser duo. So the podium ceremony to come. So these are watches being given to the pole-sitting drivers for each of the classes. In the Pro-Am class, Hamza Vega, who went on to win overall, and Maciej Marcinovic, who was the AM pole-sitter, the overall pole-sitter, in fact. So laid down a good job, but unfortunately for the number 7 Maserati crew, that was sort of the peak of their weekend, and ended up not finishing the race. Fell down the order, but again, it's about gaining experience. So off the drivers go with their Certina watches. Unusual way onto the podium there for Jörg Wiebahn, but any way he can, he will go up there. And this is in the AM class, and that's Jörg Wiebahn waiting for his teammate to come back, but he's marooned with his car. That's Rob Severs. He's out at the far end of the track. We saw that 43 pulling off. Second place in the AM class, Moritz Österreich and Luca Volgarten. And the winner of the AM class... is Patrick Niederhauser and Marilyn Niederhauser. They take top position in the AM class. Doesn't look as though Marilyn Niederhauser is going to stop smiling for some while. Class victory here. So running through the national anthems, and in the AM class, looks like Jörg Wiebahn's going to get 2 trophies, one for him and one for his teammate. Still waiting for Rob Severs to have his car recovered from the far end of the circuit. So that's Allied Racing Porsche Cayman. So job well done. Come what may, Marilyn and Patrick Niederhauser were set for a good result. Brilliant charge by Patrick, and they come away on the top step of the podium. Jörg Wiebahn's been on the top of many a podium, and he certainly knows how to spray someone in the face. Very gentlemanly there from Jörg. Marilyn appears to have forgotten her trophy. You can be sure that one's going to be very sweet for her, setting her season running very, very nicely indeed. So the opening round of the first ever GT4 Central European Cup at the Most Autodrome provided plenty of incident, and particularly in those final couple of laps. We had the red flag bring it to a halt about a minute or so early, and then on countback it meant we lost about 3 minutes of racing time. And let's take a look at the highlights, and certainly to me one of the highlights was Jörg Wiebahn's amazing start at the race, at the beginning of the race 1 hour ago. 4th place into 1st. Great by anybody's reckoning. In fact, I think the highlight's coming in a short while. Just waiting to hear if the second part of the podium ceremony will get underway. Well, I think that's all from the opening race of the first ever round of the GT4 Central European Cup. We have another race tomorrow, 1 hour of action, and I think that's guaranteed.